Hello, my name is Diana Cajamarca Barbosa, and this presentation is about how to transition your science class to the 5E model. This video will take a teacher-centered approach, so this will be a lecture-style presentation. This presentation is a guide to how to create a professional development to teach educators how to write up their lessons using the 5E model. So this presentation can be adapted to a student-centered an immersive experience for a presential or in-person professional development. Social constructivism is a learner-centered theory. He proposes that learning happens through engagement and first-hand experiences. Also, that understanding new concepts, it's an active experience where the learner creates meaningful connections between prior knowledge and new knowledge. Learning takes place within a social context where people interact and collaborate, and learning is unique to the individual. So, learners' previous knowledge and experiences play a key role in the process of constructing new knowledge. And because learners' experiences are different, their learning paths are unique to them. And this is why it's so important to use the learner's background knowledge in new learning experiences. And so this slide is just telling us that learning arises from the interactions between members, their experiences, and through the development and sharing and improvement of artifacts through evaluation and reflection. So students explore new concepts through hands-on experiences prior to being formally introduced to new concepts through literature, lectures, or videos. So this theory proposes that learners should learn through active engagement rather than passively receiving information. Now, some methodologies use social constructivism, and they encourage students' knowledge construction through inquiry, proving, and by figuring out their own solution to problems. So from social constructivism, there are several learning methods that emerge, such as inquiry-based learning, discovery-based learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning, and authentic learning. Also, this theory proposes that the teachers facilitate learning rather than imparting knowledge. And lastly, that learning is collaborative in nature. Inquiry-based instructional approach stems from the constructivist theory. It's a student-centered. Learning happens through inquiry and questioning. Teachers are facilitators. Learning activities promote collaboration and communication. And subject knowledge is but one of the objectives of inquiry-based learning. This method also aims to teach students to solve problems, think critically, and to show them also how scientists think and work. The 5E model encapsulates the core components of inquiry-based learning. It proposes that scientific knowledge is gained through exploration or first-hand experiences before formal introduction of concepts. The 5 stages of this model are engagement, exploration, explanation, elaboration, and evaluation. Also, it has a DIY mindset. It's collaborative and allows students to express themselves and their knowledge through creation of meaningful products. Also, it makes students become resilient and reflective because this method teaches learners that failure is part of the process of learning and growing. And last, this model promotes piquing students' curiosity and to provide several opportunities to apply their knowledge and to evaluate concepts understanding through meaningful assessments. These are the 5 stages of the 5E model. In the engagement stage, teachers kindle the students' curiosity through creative scenarios and demonstrations. They also check for students' prior knowledge and experiences. This stage is meant to grab students' attention and to motivate them for the duration of this lesson. The second stage is the exploration stage, where students explore new concepts through hands-on experiences. They test out ideas, make inferences, they figure out the proper use of tools that will be used throughout this lesson or unit. Teachers also provide feedback. They can provide a structure through checkpoints. And they also encourage students to learn and reflect through questioning. In the explanation stage, teachers expand concepts based on students' background knowledge and experiences from prior cycle stages. So this is where teachers formally introduce the concepts that are being studied in this lesson. And they can be introduced through a lecture, presentation, a video, a website. The next stage is elaboration. In this stage, the students apply what they have learned from the previous stages, and they create something new. They apply what they learned into a novel, real-world context. And last is the evaluation stage, which occurs throughout all the other stages through teachers' observations and assignments. This is a perfect time to include self-reflection for students to revisit what they've learned and gain some metacognitive skills. How should science be taught is the main question that drives this professional development. This question is posted as students, in this case, it will be teachers, educators, are walked through a simulation of the 5E model. The simulation is going to immerse them in the 5E model to help them understand how learning of scientific concepts take place applying this framework. We simulate the engaged stage by turning off the lights and stating the following scenario. You and your friends are on a camping trip and decide to go out for a walk in the woods. However, you end up straying deep into the woods, far from your campsite. Night has fallen and you have no flashlight to find your way back to the camp in the darkness. However, upon looking through your belongings, you're able to gather the following items: one functioning battery from a broken flashlight, a flashlight bulb, and a few pieces of coated copper wire. So students, in this case teachers, are divided into teams for activities on the next stages. And the stage, the engagement stage, is meant to conceptualize learning and ignite students' curiosity. The facilitator's role is to identify students' prior conceptions using diagnostic assessments, observation, or questions. It's imperative that no formal introduction or explanations of concepts or vocabulary are provided in this stage. This stage is meant to fascinate, intrigue students, fixate their attention, kindle their reasoning, and obviously teachers are to check for students' prior knowledge and experiences. So in the explore stage, teams are given a light bulb, a D-size battery, and a piece of wire. Students' tasks are to light up the bulb, but additionally, they need to draw diagrams for the different arrangements that work and do not work to light up the bulb. Now, drawing these diagrams help students in the modeling process of conceptualizing an idea that they're attempting to learn. Teachers work as facilitators. They visit all teams, they ask questions based on observations they make of the students as they attempt to solve this challenge. And last, the person who's doing this presentation, they can expect students to get a bit frustrated because they're gonna be failing in some of their attempts to make the light bulb function. And you're gonna see other students become determined to make it work as well. Now, these investigations enable students to develop new concepts, understanding, and skills through a first-hand experience and collaboration. So the teacher's role is to facilitate, is to prove, inquire, and question to help the students continue this exploratory stage. They help gain or arrive to a concept or to knowledge through questions, but never giving out direct responses or answers. The exploration stage should be partitioned into several proving exploratory activities. At this stage, students are exploring new concepts on their own, so formal explanation of concepts and vocabulary are left out. Formal introduction of concepts and vocabulary will take place in later stages. So in the explanation stage, the teams explain all the arrangements that worked and that did not work. There's also a class discussion where students talk about patterns and arrangements they found essential as part of lighting up the bulb. Also, what do all the successful arrangements have in common? Those are good guiding questions. And then next, teachers build on knowledge gained in the exploration stage with formal presentation of concepts and vocabulary. So the content introduced in this stage should be limited to the concepts in the exploration stage. So here, teachers, the facilitator, should explain what is a circuit and how does it work. In this stage, concepts are expanded based on students' background knowledge and experiences on prior cycle stages. Also, we connect students' previous vocabulary to new one. So this is a good stage where teachers can use concept wheels, semantic word maps, to help students make those associations with new vocabulary. Also, we connect concepts with videos or expert knowledge. So this is a great part, a great stage of the cycle where you can have a Skype guest speaker. You can also have a reading, or students can refer to the textbook to get a formal introduction of these concepts. So some of the common student responses during class discussions are the following. Students mention commonalities such as the need to use all three items, all parts should be connected, and that the connection of the items make it look like a loop, a circle, or a cycle. We use the students' generated ideas to introduce circuits. At this point, limiting the discussion to the basics and not extending to the types of circuits or other elements not yet explored. The second Explore and Explain activity has a new challenge that's added to the beginning scenario that was presented in the Engage stage. So this new challenge is, back at the campsite, you find several more bulbs from flashlights with dead batteries and consider making the area brighter by aligning these bulbs too. Try lining up 2 or 3 light bulbs using one battery and several wires. Draw all the arrangements that do and do not work. So students are provided with the additional materials for the second hands-on activity. As students are working on their new challenge, teachers walk around asking how the new arrangements are similar or different to the ones in the first challenge. Teachers also ask questions using vocabulary and concepts that students learned in the previous experiment. Now, teachers visit all the teams, provide suggestions and feedbacks, such as make sure everything is touching or check to see if the wire is touching the sides of both bulbs. Now, when using this activity with your own students, you might notice that some of the teams succeed at lining 2 bulbs and excitement starts building up in the classroom, which will start to encourage other teams to continue to try more combinations and find the arrangement that works. So after students have been given enough time to work out through their challenge, the teacher begins a class discussion where they're gonna share their arrangements and observations about commonalities and patterns in their setups, in their arrangements of their materials to make several light bulbs light up. So here is a perfect time to have a formal introduction of the types of circuits, which are the series versus the parallel. Educators can use a website that caters to your students' specific age group. Could be a video, could be a website. And after this, the students share questions that they would like to research further. So some of the questions that students have made in the past are if the wire or the battery could be replaced with other objects and whether or not that would impact the intensity of the light generated. Another question is whether the size or the number of batteries used would impact the intensity of the light produced. So it would be ideal to have enough time to cover these questions, to create other explore and explain activities, to put students through another challenge, to explore different materials. But if there's not enough class time, a suggestion is to hand the students a little baggie with a paper clip, aluminum foil, a small piece of wire mesh, brass clip, a golf tee, and a small key. And they can at home try these different arrangements with these new materials And also, the teacher can provide a virtual simulation so they can do it at home and also see these simulations in their comfort of their own homes. Now, a discussion continues, which is what materials you think could replace the wire and why. So the concept of conductivity is introduced here again. The teacher introduces it and how certain objects can be conductors and insulators. So this is a perfect moment for teachers to give pertinent examples, such as what would happen if you put a fork into a power outlet. So this is the third explore and explain activity, and this is the last challenge students will be put through. So teams are going to be given a flashlight. They have to disassemble it and inspect its parts. After that, they need to draw sketches of all of the parts and need to make predictions of what they think the functions of the parts might be. So after this, class discussion follows, and students talk about the similarities and differences between an original circuit and the flashlight, the circuit they found in the flashlight. They also start participating and making all sorts of observations, including the switch that breaks and connects the circuit. In the elaboration stage, students apply what they have learned in a novel real-world context. So the task for this stage is for students to use common objects found at home and build a flashlight and write up a description of how it works. So just a quick note, this stage is not to be confused as another explore and explain stage. Instead, this stage is meant for students to apply what they have learned in previous stages. Evaluate is the last stage of the cycle, and evaluation has happened throughout all the different stages, through diagnostic and formative assessments, through teacher observations, and through student task completion. So here, evaluation occurs through observations, evaluation of different products produced throughout the cycles, like drawing and written explanations. Also, it's very important to provide students some time to work on their metacognitive skills. We're gonna mention metacognitive skills a little more in detail later on. So at this point, teachers have gone through the whole simulation of what circuits are and how they work using the 5E model framework. So after that, we come back to the question, how should science be taught? So here now we're gonna hold another discussion where teachers are going to share what their observations were about all the different stages of the 5E cycle. They're also going to share with us what they think the teachers and the students' roles are within the different stages of the lesson. And they're also going to compare a typical lesson with the simulated one that they just experienced. So after that discussion, teachers are going to give further practice where they can apply what they learn about the 5E cycle into a new activity. So they're going to be given a lesson about water pollution, and they're only going to be involved in the engage and explore stages, where they're actually partaking in those stages. But For the rest of the stages, they're going to be provided with a conceptual storyline of the lessons, the 5 stages lessons, and they're going to have to label all the stages and explain their reasoning for why they are labeling a specific description that a specific stage. After that, their responses are shared, additional questions are answered, and misconceptions about the 5E cycle are clarified. So this is a short outline that the teachers will be provided just to give them general information about the water pollution lesson. This is the water pollution lesson using the 5E model. The stages descriptions for this lesson can be put into a storyline without the stages names, so learners can apply their knowledge of the 5E cycle and match the stage description to its name, and then write up their reasoning for their responses. And this is the stream water quality worksheet that students will be using to complete the water pollution lesson. So in application through planning, each group is asked to modify a lesson applying the 5E model and to provide more than just one day for the lesson to give students enough time to develop deeper understanding of the lesson's concepts. So this is the very last task where they're selecting one of their own lessons and applying the 5E model. And it is expected that these lessons take a little bit longer because hands-on experiences are time consuming, because students are constructing their own knowledge. So it is suggested that teachers adapt these lessons to last more than just one day. So this slide mentions errors and misconceptions teachers made while they were applying the 5E model into their lessons. There's also a couple of suggestions of what to keep in mind when developing your 5E lessons so that you don't make the same mistakes. So the first one is whenever students are still figuring something out or new concepts are being explored, these activities always belong to the exploration stage. So if they're figuring something out on their own, it's part of the exploration stage and it should belong in the exploration stage. Now the next one is teachers were prone to create not engaging activities in the engaged stage. Instead, they included the KWAL chart for students to complete. So yeah, you want the engaging stage to do that, to engage. A KW chart is not acceptable for this stage. You need to be creative. You need to create a scenario, do a demonstration, something that will be engaging your audience, your learners. The next one is videos or literature were introduced in the engaged stage instead of allowing students to explore these concepts in the exploration stage. So yes, I mean, this point was made clear throughout this slide presentation, but the engage and the explore stages should not include formal introductions of concepts and vocabulary. That should be left for the explanation stage. And the last suggestion in this slide is some lesson plans included insufficient descriptions for the roles of the teacher and the students in the explain stage. So yeah, you need to be very thorough to make sure that when you're implementing it, you have all the different scenarios thought out and you can provide your students with the best feedback possible. So here in the explain stage, group discussions were included, but a formal introduction of the concepts and vocabulary was left out of the plans. So yeah, the explain stage is meant for the formal introduction of concepts and vocabulary to take place. So make sure that's in your lessons. And the very last point is, when a formal introduction of concepts was included, there were more concepts and vocabulary included than the concepts explored in the explain stage. The entirety of the lesson's concepts were covered in this formal explanation without including more stages of exploration and explanation. Thus, some lessons only had one learning cycle of explore and explain without more iteration of these two stages. So you definitely want to create several explore and explain stages. If there's going to be several concepts students are going to be discovering in the lesson. Your explanation stage, just as it was explained just now, should only formally introduce concepts you students have had the time to discover on their own through hands-on experiences. So this last slide talks about giving students time to develop their metacognitive skills. So self-assessment is a process that allows students to become aware of their learning habits. And these are their metacognitive skills, when they become aware of how they learn and how they improve the way they learn, right? So how they improve their self-efficacy and take charge of their self-regulation. If students become aware of the behaviors inhibiting their learning and are given skills and tools to develop effective learning habits, their school performance and sense of self-efficacy will improve. So this is a great kind of self-assessment you can give students in the evaluation stage. And some of the tools and the skills that the students will benefit from are how to take notes, how to break big assignments into small tasks, that little by little, practicing every day is going to help us improve a skill. So those are some questions you can include as part of your evaluative stage at the end of the 5E cycle, for students to become a little bit more self-aware of their learning habits, and also to develop this new learning habit of reflection, right? That they can sort of observe themselves and find tools to help themselves improve.